Hello there, and welcome to my channel. My name is Alice, and today I want to share with you a tutorial as to how to make some collage art. This is the collage art that we're going to be making, and you just saw the first piece of collage art that I created as well. I recently got into this, and it's really fun, and it's something that pretty much anyone can do. So the first thing that you want to do is grab some magazines. You can also use junk mail or anything you have lying around the house. If you want to print things out, you can do that as well. But I really like magazines because they're great for just flipping through and finding inspiration. You can find words, there's lots of great advertisements and things like that. So basically, I just flip through. If I find something that I like or that seems interesting, I cut it out. I don't have a specific theme in mind yet. I'm just seeing where this all takes me. And once I have some things cut out, then I will spend a little bit more time seeing what kind of goes well together and see if a theme starts to pop out at me. So that's definitely the first thing that you want to do, and this can be honestly one of the most time-consuming parts of doing the collage. It takes a while to find all your inspiration and all of the different things that you want to cut out. Speaking of inspiration, before I go too far, I do want to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video. Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. I have used Skillshare for years and years, and I am such a huge fan of it. It's an online learning community specifically for creatives, and it offers thousands of inspiring classes. They combine video lessons and a class project, and they are split into small and easy to absorb lessons. They have classes ranging from watercolor to photography to design and more. One class that I was really intrigued by this time around was called Creative Space, Organize Your Studio or Workspace and Unlock Creativity. I'm always into reorganizing my space and was working on reorganizing my art closet, so I thought this was the perfect class for me to get some inspiration. If you're thinking about changing up your space, it's definitely a great place to get started with some ideas and inspiration. Skillshare is less than $10 a month when you get an annual subscription, and the first 1,000 people who click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership. Again, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to the tutorial. Once you've loosely cut out all of the pieces that inspire you, and one tip that is helpful with cutting them out from the magazine is if you have something that's really close to the seam of the magazine, like the center of the magazine, I definitely recommend using an X-Acto blade. You can generally use it without cutting through the page behind you if you're careful, and it really, really helps to get those little when it's really close to the seam of the page. Another thing that is helpful that you want to keep in mind is before you cut anything out, make sure that you check on the back of the page because there may be something that you like more on the back of the page that you're going to cut through if you cut out the thing on the other side. So definitely keep those things in mind when you are cutting out what you're cutting out from your magazine. And then once you've cut them out all loosely and generally, you can do what I'm doing now, which is basically cutting things out with more precision. It's just easier to do this after you've cut it out from the magazine versus doing it while it's still attached to the magazine. It just makes it a lot easier. For this, I definitely recommend using some really small scissors, definitely sharp scissors. I have been using these ones. These were found, I got them in my Cricut set, tool set, and I just like them because they're very small and sharp. You could maybe use sewing scissors, but it's going to be a lot easier for you to get that finer detail and into all those little spaces if you're using a smaller pair of scissors. One thing that you can also do is use an X-Acto blade. I personally don't love using X-Acto blades. I don't think I'm very good at using them, and I find that I get smoother lines when I use a little pair of scissors. But for certain things, such as the inside of this girl's arms where it's hollow and needs to be cut out, or really tiny details like her face, it just makes more sense and it's just easier to use an X-Acto blade. So if you do have one of those, if you feel more comfortable with those, then that can definitely be something that you use. One thing that you should watch out for, though, is to make sure that your X-Acto blade is very sharp and not dull because the magazine paper will rip very easily just because it's very thin. So you want to be careful for that and watch out for that, especially if you're cutting small, thin details. Make sure that you're kind of reinforcing the magazine paper. So once everything was cut out, I decided to start arranging the collage on the paper. This is probably going to be the second most time-consuming thing after cutting out all the inspiration pictures, because you're going to take some time to figure out where on the sheet you want the aspects that you're going to use and what specific things you do want to use, and start figuring out kind of your theme. So I started by putting a lot of things that I thought were kind of interesting on there. And then I liked the idea of putting this, like, I think it's a bracelet or a necklace, and cutting it out and using it as kind of a chain that was hanging around her skirt. So I cut that out a little bit more closely. These ones I had waited to cut out because they were quite fiddly and I wasn't sure which one I would want to use. And those were the two things that I knew that I was going to use. I knew that I was going to use this girl as the centerpiece, because the moment that I saw her in the like perfume commercial, I was like, yes, I love that. I love that. So I knew that I was going to use her, and I thought this like chain added a really cool detail. Then I decided to try the rose flower as the thing that she was like holding and kissing, or maybe like blowing. And I thought the words ghosted and tell me lies looked really cool. I also had this thing that said honey, so it became tell me lies, honey. Another thing that you can do is you can use stamps and punches. It's a little harder with magazine paper. I used this round punch to punch out some circles from this starry night sky, and it didn't punch it out as cleanly as I would like, but it was a circle, and I was able to just go around with my scissors and clean it up a little bit. As I was arranging the pieces, I really started to figure out a story and a theme for this piece. The ghosted, tell me lies, honey, and the word listen really started to stand out to me, and this piece started to become kind of a story about listening to yourself. Originally, I was starting to kind of think about maybe listening to women, and then I ended up changing kind of the direction that I went with. I put this hand in there to kind of seem like, originally I was thinking it was pulling her down, but after a while I realized it was kind of holding her up. And this was the part where I was looking through a second magazine for a little bit more inspiration, because I loved the word listen, but I needed something to go with it. I wanted listen to something. And so I just went through a magazine and looked for some words that popped out at me. And I ended up making it listen to your mind. And the story that popped out at me while I was doing this is basically, this is about those toxic relationships that I feel so many people have had, when they just treat you terribly. And it's not just women, it's men as well. And they treat you really badly. And you are ghosted, you're told lies, and they just make you believe that it's your fault. And it's about that moment when you finally listen to your mind and your heart, and you leave that toxic relationship, and that freedom that you feel kind of blowing away those lies. So that's kind of the story behind this piece. And I really like that story. The next thing that I did was I loosely traced around some of the objects with some pencil, just so I kind of had an idea of where things were placed. And I also took a photo, so I had reference. I just took a photo on my phone. I used these Faber-Castell gelatos, which are really fun for mixed media, to sketch in a loose background, and then I just went over with a bunch of water. I think it's really fun to add these colored backgrounds to these pieces, but I wanted to create the collage first so that I knew the color scheme that it was going to be, and I kind of knew what story it was going to tell. For this, I wanted a darker color in the bottom right corner where the hand was going to be, because for me, the bottom right corner represented the relationship and the toxicity that this girl was leaving behind. So for that, I added in some more watercolor from these Viviva color sheets. I added in purple and black to make it a lot darker. And then I went ahead and splattered some light pink glitter and also some regular pink glitter watercolors to add a little bit more texture and interest, as well as some shine, because I really love glittery things. Then comes probably one of the trickier parts, which is trying to reline up your collage. This will never be perfect, but the pencil lines definitely help. So does the reference photo that you took before. That is really important. Make sure that you take that photo. Then you want to start gluing things on in the order that you have them. You definitely want to glue the bottom pieces on first. And as I glue these pieces on, I'm adding bits of mixed media to make it more interesting. So I started by adding this circle of a starry sky, and I put this white gouache around it that kind of gave it almost like a moon-like feel. Then I dotted on some more little sprays of white gouache, and once that was dry, I added the next layer. The next layer is the little flower, and the reason I had her there was just to make sure that I was placing everything correctly. And once I had the flower on, I added detail to that. I used these metallic paints to create a little bit of a drop shadow on the left of the flower. And then I created these rays that were shining out of the flower and kind of into the sky or whatever it is. Metallics are a great thing to add in collage. They add a lot of different interest, and they're just really, really fun to work with. I definitely recommend when you're doing your collage art, mixing in different things like paints, pens, all of that kind of stuff. It just adds a lot more interest. Continuing with sticking things on in the order of the layers, I stuck on this little star, and then adding some more detail with mixed media, I used this super, super shiny metallic pen that I have to add this really gold outline to the star. And by the way, I will list all of the supplies that I used to create this in the description box at the bottom of the video. For the glue, if anyone's wondering, I prefer to use a glue stick. I'm using this Elmer's Craft Bond, but I'm not gonna lie, it could be better. There were definitely a couple times that I felt like it lifted up, and I used this for another collage, and now that collage is missing the word N, the letter N. So I'm not 100% sure that I would recommend this glue. You might be able to find something better, but I do like a glue stick itself. That makes it a lot easier. Then I finally got to stick my main girl down, which was pretty exciting. And I also used this little crafter square. I got it at the dollar store, but you can find it on Amazon. It's a glue and residue eraser, and it works really well for getting glue off, also for masking fluid. So I just used that. And then I used this gold pen again, and I made these really quick lines on her skirt, and I smudged them with my finger. So you got this really cool kind of like loose, glittery, metallic effect floating on her skirt, and I was really happy with how that turned out. I also put the gold over the waistband just to kind of change things up. Don't be afraid to draw on top of your collage. It definitely can add more interest. Another thing that can be helpful is to mix up your layering. As you can see when I'm putting this hand on, part of the fingers is over the little like chain around her skirt and part of them are under. This adds more visual interest, and it's a great way to remember to, add a little bit of spice to your collage. Then I stuck on Listen to Your Mind, used the eraser one more time, and colored in the nail gold for a little bit more spice. Then I went around the main character with a black micron. It didn't work super great. I would maybe use a Sharpie next time. It kept it was struggling, but I wanted to add a little bit more definition around her upper half, especially the face area. And then I added a little detail to the waistband, and that was it. I'm done. I really enjoyed making this collage, and I thought it would be a really fun thing to share with you guys because it's something that pretty much anyone can do, whether you feel like you're an artist or not. I definitely encourage you to make some collages. It is so fun, it is so freeing, and most people already have a decent amount of the supplies lying around to make them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you really liked it. Let me know if you try any collage art. I would love to see it. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and if you like this video, subscribe, check out my Instagram and my Twitch, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.